5, 4. There we are. G'day guys, welcome to another Malts with Mates. Today I'm here with Stephan Randles of Origin Spirits with Calat Vodka, Warner Gin, Kurak Whiskey. You've got more products as well, don't you?
So we've 5 products in total. We've Calat Single Malt Vodka, Calat Peat Cask Single Malt Vodka, which is the first peated vodka in the world, Warner Single Malt Gin, Kurak Single Malt Irish Whiskey, Atlantic Bamboo Seaweed Cask, and then our Kurak Founders Cask strength release. So 5 products in total. Pretty interesting portfolio.
No, it's a super interesting portfolio. What are you drinking
Do you
today?
oh, can I get my phrase right here? Did I sign it there for you, Marcus?
Thank you very much for the sign. You're the first person to do a sign for me, so I'm very much enjoying that.
It came free with the apartment, so I said I'd put something together for you.
That's fantastic. Hannah, by the way, is applauding you, I believe, and Susan from Irish Drams is happy to see you as well. Susan, I shaved. That's why you don't recognize me.
Suzanne and Hannah, great. Hello, Suzanne and Hannah.
So, what are you drinking today, mate? What do you got?
So I have some of our new Kurak Atlantic Bamboo Seaweed Cask finish in my glass today. So Sláinte, it's great. I haven't had a 5 p.m. drink with anyone in a very long time because of the madness with COVID-19. So albeit virtually here, it's great to have a drink with you, Marcus. So Sláinte to you.
That's fantastic.
It's very different to the last time we had a drink together. Oh my God, you have a bottle.
Oh yeah.
Very nice. What do you think?
It's really interesting. If I didn't know any better, I would think that there was a high rye content in it because it has some of that spiciness that I would have expected from a rye whiskey. But I guess that could be coming from the seaweed cask.
It's actually it's saltiness. Would you believe it's saline that's nearly coming across as spiciness on the palate? But yeah, I see what you mean. There's a definite slight spice to it. But that is definitely coming from the seaweed charred cask that wasn't in the whiskey before it went into the cask.
Okay, so that's the world's first seaweed to char cask. What was the thought process behind that?
So we believe it was actually a world's first for whiskey, full stop. As far as we're aware, there has never been a whiskey out there anywhere that has been influenced by seaweed in any other manner. Now, there has been since. I know the guys in Writer's Tears did a seaweed IPA cask, and there's a new Canadian distillery that are actually using seaweed to char or smoke the barley before the distillation. But as far as we're aware, we think that we were the first to ever release a whiskey that was actually influenced with seaweed. So it was strange how it came about. I suppose we're a premium craft spirit producer specializing in avant-garde single malt spirits. And up until about 2 or 3 months ago, we actually didn't even produce a whiskey. Kurak only went onto the market there 3 months ago. And I suppose that was strategic. We never planned on actually releasing a whiskey. We planned on being a single malt vodka, single malt gin company. And many people used to always ask us, because there's so many different distilleries here in Ireland at the moment, I think, that have their vodka and their gin out, and they're quite transparent about the fact that this is out there on the market while they're waiting for their whiskey to mature. That was never the case with us. We were a single malt vodka, single malt gin company first and foremost. We actually said we'd never do a whiskey unless we could think of something innovative enough that would fit into our portfolio. So our entire portfolio, it honours Ireland's terroir, it honours Ireland's tradition of distillation, but it also kind of is an ode to our spirit of creativity here on the island of Ireland. So our first 3 products, Calat Single Malt Vodka, Calat Peat Cask Single Malt Vodka, and Warner Single Malt Gin, were pushing the boundaries in their individual categories. Single malt vodka, copper pot distilled using 100% Irish malted barley is pretty out there. Peated vodka is pretty out there. Warner Single Malt Gin is one of only 3 single malt gins in the world. And how Kurak actually came about was we created Calat Peat Cask, and that was a world's first for the vodka industry. And we were looking at Warner Single Malt Gin, and we were like, what can we do here that would be a world's first? What can we do that no one has ever done before? Because we love to push the boundaries and we love to kind of innovate and come up with new and different things. But everything that we do, we try and use as many Irish ingredients as possible, and we try to utilize the terroir that we have here on our doorstep. And I suppose we started to investigate what elements of the Irish landscape and Irish terroir could we utilize to influence and enhance Hornabrack Single Malt Gin. And we looked at the Irish landscape and we were kind of like, well, everything has pretty much been done here. So we actually started looking at the maritime landscape and the maritime terroir, because as an island nation, we really do have an abundance of life happening around us in terms of maritime terroir and maritime landscape. And we came across the idea of seaweed, and we were thinking of potentially influencing Ornabrack with seaweed, but we looked around, and when we actually did some research, we realized there was an awful lot of other companies out there in the market already doing gins that have been influenced by seaweed, particularly in Scotland and Wales. I know on Doulaman up in the north from Seaweed Distillers that they had done a seaweed influenced gin as well. So again, as I said, we wanted to do something that no one else had done before. So we were still playing around with a number of different ideas on Ornabrack, on different things that we could do to finish off Ornabrack that would be world's first. And we kind of put the idea of seaweed to bed. And then one day myself and Patrick were having a conversation, and we have conversations like this all the time. If you listened in on a daily basis, we're coming up with different innovations and creations of what we could potentially do in a different spirits category to kind of upset the apple cart and come up with something new and innovative. And we started discussing seaweed again, and we said, wouldn't it be amazing, if you influenced a whiskey with seaweed? Now, we had no idea, Marcus. We had no idea how we could possibly go about this. And when you think about seaweed, you think seaweed in its kind of raw state is quite oily, quite fishy, quite pungent. When you actually cook seaweed and roast seaweed, it releases completely different aromas and taste profiles. And what we realized quite quickly through various different forms of exploration and experimenting was that when you actually cook seaweed, the aromas that you can release are absolutely stunning and beautiful, and each seaweed completely changes from its raw state when it's cooked and roasted, and the aromas and taste profiles that are released from them when it's cooked are just absolutely stunning. So we said, how can we take these beautiful flavors and bring them into a single malt Irish whiskey? And it's key that it has to be a single malt, because everything we've done up until this point has been single malt. The DNA that transverses our portfolio is that every single product that we make, we use 100% Irish malted barley, all sourced from local farmers, sustainably grown. We distill our base spirit for Ornabrack single malt gin and for Calac. So nothing we use is GNS based. So we started looking around Ireland. We started asking different people who work in the seaweed industry what way we could possibly go about this. And we eventually got chatting to these amazing guys up in County Clare. They're called the Talty family from Wild Irish Seaweeds. And what they do is they sustainably harvest organic Irish seaweed off the west coast of Ireland. And they're a fourth generation seaweed harvester. So literally the great-grandfather, the grandfather, the son, the great-grandson, they all go out and harvest seaweed, especially in the busy times. And there's some fascinating content up on their social media page. We see the entire family down on the beaches of Clare harvesting the seaweed. So what they do for us is they sustainably harvest the seaweed off the west coast of Ireland. Then they bring it to an old fish smokehouse just off the cliffs of Moher in a stunning location. And what they've done there is they've turned this old fish smokehouse into a seaweed drying facility, and they completely dry out the seaweed for us there. And what we do then is we bring the seaweed down to West Cork Distillers in Skibbereen, and that's where we contract distill all of our spirits. And that's a fantastic partnership we have with the guys there. And they're great guys to work with. A big shout out to John O'Connell, Dennis McCarthy, and Ger McCarthy, and one guy in particular who does an awful lot for us is a guy called Brendan Coakley down there, who does an awful lot of work for us. So we contract distill all of our spirits down there. And what we did is we brought the seaweed down there, and what we started doing is we were like, how can we get this cooked seaweed aromas and taste profile actually into the whiskey? So we thought, why not use the seaweed as a fuel source to actually char it, because numerous varieties of fuel sources have been used for the last 100 years or 200 years or however long whiskey has been around to actually char the cask. So we thought, why not use the seaweed as a fuel source to actually char the cask? So what we do is we put little allotments of seaweed into the cask in half a kg allotments, and we light it on fire then inside the interior of the cask and use it to char the cask. And what we do is we rotate the cask then, and we actually put the lid back on the cask. We even roll it as well so that the smoke and the charring circulates throughout the interior of the cask while the seaweed is going up in flames. And we do that 5 or 6 times. We then take all of the seaweed out of the cask, and we put single malt Irish whiskey that has been distilled for us by West Cork Distillers to our strict specifications. So it would be that it has to be made from 100% Irish malted barley, that it has to be triple distilled using the traditional copper pot still, and that it has to be non-chill filtered and aged in first fill bourbon casks up until that point. And we put them into the seaweed charred casks. We let them rest for a further 3 months. And what you get is this beautiful union of land and sea between the Irish malted barley and the Irish seaweed coming together in this beautiful union. It's very much an Irish whiskey up front. You have all those traditional Irish flavour characteristics, the toffees, the vanillas, the caramels, but on the back end of the palate, there is this beautiful umami style maritime flavour characteristic that I certainly have never tasted in any whiskey before. What do you think of it, Marcus?
I think it's fantastic. Look, you've made a whiskey that is very different to anything that anyone's seen before. Mick from Still Surreal believes it's wonderful. I've had the comment on the screen, and he can't wait for batch 2, neither can I.
Mick's a great guy. I was on with Mick and the English whiskey chap. We did a tweet tasting of Curragh live. The guys organised a few Twitter people from the English whiskey Twitter community to come together, and we did a tweet tasting. It was a fantastic night, I have to say. But the entire whiskey community all around the world have really rallied around Curragh whiskey. You know, we were quite afraid when we were putting this out there. We were pretty sure that this would be seen as a Marmite product. Because, you know, the term seaweed in whiskey, we thought that might put some people off, and we weren't sure how it would be received. But we launched the weekend that lockdown kicked in here in Ireland, and we did is we sent out 50 samples to people in the Irish whiskey community, and we did a Sunday night sup tweet tasting with Dave O'Connell from Dave's Irish Whiskey that weekend to launch the brand. And honestly, Marcus, we got a little bit nervous before because we weren't sure what the feedback would be, because we said to them, you know, guys, be honest, tell us honestly what you think of this. And every single person came back with overwhelmingly positive comments and tasting notes, stunning tasting notes. And ever since then, everybody, any post we've put up has been sharing and resharing and liking and tweeting, and just the support we've received from everyone. Because I think, as I was saying to you, know, this is a world's first for whiskey. And I think the Irish whiskey community are very proud of that fact and really rallied behind us because of that, and kind of put it out there that, you know, this innovation is coming from Ireland.
Well, I'm not surprised. The product itself is fantastic. The story behind it is amazing, and the innovation within it really speaks a lot about what you guys do, especially with your peated single malt vodka, your single malt gin, both of which I've tried and are both stunning. I'm not a vodka or gin person, but something like that really could turn me onto it. It'll never displace whiskey, but that's a fantastic drink.
So would you believe they've actually a huge validation for us, and I suppose that was all strategic. Like the founder, Patrick Shelley, he's 20 years previous experience in the luxury drinks industry working for LVMH, so Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy. And how the company actually was founded is Patrick is actually a whiskey lover and a whiskey drinker from Tipperary, and he was based in Moscow in Russia for LVMH. And he looked after the Moet Hennessy portfolio over there. And tradition over there in the drinks industry, Marcus, is if we were to cement a business partnership, that you would go out with your business counterpart and you would cheers to that partnership over glasses of high-end vodka in whatever bar and nightclub in downtown Moscow. And Patrick, being a whiskey lover from Tipperary in Ireland, he really couldn't get his head around why people were going out and spending so much money on a spirit category that is vodka, that by its very definition is meant to be neutral. It's meant to be tasteless, flavourless, odourless, neutral. That's the definition of vodka. But what I and what Patrick both love about spirits, and what I'm sure what you love about spirits, and anyone listening here loves about spirits, is that character, that flavour profile. And when I'm drinking a spirit anyway, I look for character from the actual distillation, from the terroir, not from any artificial sweeteners or things that have been added to the actual distillate to enhance the flavour, but from the actual distillation. So Patrick kind of came home to Ireland and set out on a quest to create a vodka, sorry, over here, getting my slides wrong, a vodka that he himself, a whiskey drinker, could drink, something with complexity, something with character, something with character from the actual distillation, and kind of took inspiration from the Irish single malt whiskey world. And he looked around at all these beautiful single malt Irish whiskies here, and he was kind of saying, you know, why are single malt whiskies so successful coming out of Ireland? And one of the main reasons being we grow some of the best malted barley in the world here on this island down the southeast coast. I think Waterford's new distillery is a testament to that, with all the things they're doing with single farm, single origin, single estate. But Patrick drew inspiration from this. And, you know, Irish malted barley, we've the best kind of cool temperate oceanic climates, beautiful fertile soils. All of our barley is sustainably grown. We've much more kind of stricter rules on how you can grow your barley here in Ireland by comparison to other countries. So much so, I know there's some single malt Irish whiskey companies out there that don't even use Irish malted barley because it's so bloody expensive to use, because it is that good. But Patrick took inspiration from this, and set out to create a vodka that he himself, a whiskey drinker, could actually enjoy, and decided he wanted to make a single malt vodka. And for those of you out there who aren't familiar with the term single malt and think single malt doesn't that need to be whiskey, these single malt, you must be three things. You must be distilled in one distillery location, distilled using 100% malted barley, and distilled on traditional copper pot stills. Now, Patrick looked at this definition and went, I can make a vodka within those parameters. But not being a distiller himself, he actually hired some of the top distillery consultants in the world to come to Ireland to work with him on this project. So a few names that I'm sure you'll be familiar with, Marcus. A guy called Dr. Jim Swan was involved in Project Calab. Jim Swan, who unfortunately passed away recently, was probably one of the top whiskey experts in the world. You had a guy called Ian Wozniewski, who's one of the top authors and writers and experts in the world on all things vodka and all things whiskey. And a guy called Roy Court from the Middleton Distillery down in Cork, quite close to where I grew up, who was involved for this project as well. And the whole concept was, generally when you're making a vodka, you use cheaper grains, you column distill, and you try strip away as much flavor from the grain as possible and just be left with pure ethanol. So you'll see it's multi-distilled, multi-filtered, to strip away as much flavor as possible. But what Patrick and what these guys did while working with John O'Connell and the guys down in West Cork was they wanted to keep the distillations and the filtrations as low as possible, to keep as much flavor inside in the actual distiller as possible from that Irish malted barley. Because when you're using the Rolls Royce of grains that is Irish malted barley, why would you want to strip away the flavor from the distillation, from the filtration? So how we actually make Cadillac single malt vodka is we 4 times copper pot distill, and then we filter only once through a light carbon filter. So it's almost like a new make distillate, although it's a little bit more elegant, a little bit more sophisticated because it's had that 4th distillation. So that, to kind of round out that point, it was kind of a conscious decision to create spirits, vodka, and gins that had whiskey characteristics and styles to them.
No, that's incredible. Obviously, with the help of the late Dr. Jim Swan, I can only expect, a fantastic spirit. And for the future, where you're looking at, batch 2 of the Carac cask, because Mick said he's looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Everyone in Ireland is looking forward to it. As you go through with the different batches, would you plan to change the style of seaweed or change the style of cask we're using? Or do you really just want to do more experimentation, less experimentation? What's the kind of idea there?
Always more experimentation, definitely. I suppose out now at the moment we've Carac batch 1 and we've a Carac Founders cask. Our Carac Founders cask, which this was actually drawn from our test cask that we used to investigate the idea of influencing a single malt Irish whiskey with seaweed. So there's only 220 bottles of that available, and we released it at cask strength. So there was a slight difference to that. We weren't as nuanced in our kind of our cask sharing techniques with this. Instead of putting the cask on its side and putting it in allotments, what we actually did is we plonked about 10 kg worth of seaweed into a cask and just charred the hell out of it with a flamethrower. But that's a very special whiskey because that is literally the first whiskey in the world to ever been influenced by seaweed. While our commercial release is the first release, but that was a vatting of 10 different casks. Our single cask, Founders cask strength, is a very special whiskey. So that's out there at the moment. You have a batch 1 of the current commercial release out there at the moment, which, as I said, was a vatting of 10 casks put together, all charred using Atlantic Kombu Irish seaweed, which is a brown seaweed varietal. So batch 2 of that will probably be coming out towards August, September. So we've thankfully had huge success internationally with Carac. Before COVID-19, we actually had 10 international markets all lined up to take it on. We were worried when COVID kicked in, would they all be able to actually take on the product, because obviously the on-trade is closed down. Thankfully, the off-trade has been quite buoyant, so they've all taken it on, but a bit more of a limited capacity. Orders have been slightly smaller than what we had originally planned, but they have taken it on. So we've Carac out there in 10 international markets, which is great and fantastic. So we just need to sell through the rest of batch 1. And batch 2 is actually finished this week. But on batch 2, what we're striving for with Carac, it'll be the same seaweed variety, and we're striving for consistency as much as we can. After batch 3, we'll probably just go to commercial release on the Atlantic Kombu seaweed cask. Next, after that, we have tested, Marcus, 7 different seaweed varietals for this project. And there's a few that are very, very interesting. So Kombu would be from the brown seaweed family. There's certain we've tested like Carrageen Moss, we've tested Dillis, we've tested Wakami, And we would hope that within the next year, we planned within the first year to have 3 different commercial releases out, all different seaweed varietals, the same base liquid going into the same virgin American oak casks. So all our casks are virgin American oak casks that have come from the Kelvin Cooperage of Kentucky, all charred by different seaweed varietals, and all the whiskey then rested in each individual cask for 3 months. And we've tested this idea, and I can tell you there is a huge difference in each whiskey. So it's the same base liquid going into each. Some of them pick up real briny, scotchy style characteristics. Some of the whiskies pick up this kind of real overly salty characteristic from the seaweed varietal, almost like roast chicken skin. With the kombu is probably the most democratic of the lot. You get these beautiful kind of Arabic roast coffee, earthy notes, mid-palate. You get this rich, dark sweetness, almost akin to a sherry cask. And then at the back end, the iodine and the saltiness and the maritime flavors start kicking in. But it is subtle. It's not a lot of people have actually said to us, they were surprised, like they can definitely taste the seaweed 100%, like the seaweed on the nose and the seaweed on the palate is there, but they were expected to almost be what Octomore is to peat, for Curragh to be that to seaweed. And we were quite conscious of the fact that, a lot of people would be cautious about trying this. We wanted our first release to be democratic, but the other seaweed varietals that we have coming down the line are absolutely fascinating. And there's one in particular I think that the whiskey enthusiasts will be completely enthralled by, because it is a relatively young whiskey that we're putting into these seaweed charred casks, but what comes out of them after only 3 months of further aging tastes more akin to a 12 or a 15-year-old. Or I'd even go and say that one of the seaweed varietals makes the whiskey taste almost like an 18-year-old scotch.
Well, we can't wait to taste all of that. It sounds fantastic. Moving away from your whiskey
Yes.
For a little bit, and moving on to you, what did you do? I mean, you entered the whiskey industry, and you've done incredibly well, but what were you in before you were in whiskey?
So I suppose I've been indirectly involved in the drinks industry for the bones of about 14 years. So in my school days, every summer, the second that the bell rang for the summer holidays, I'd hop on a bus down to a place called Castletown Bar in West Cork, where my aunt owned a bar called Breen's Lobster Bar. And I used to spend my summers helping her run the bar. I can still remember well all the old fellas sitting at the bar ordering their pints of Murphy's and their Powers with the drop of water beside it. And Powers was definitely the most popular whiskey in our bar in Castletown Bar. I believe it is the highest pot still content, so maybe that's why so. From there, I went to college in UCC in Cork and did commerce. And while I was in UCC, I was quite entrepreneurial. I managed and looked after the marketing for a number of different nightclubs and bars around Cork City. In that instance, I remember well the Jameson and Pernod Ricard reps being very, very strict on the way you made the Jameson ginger and lime. Now, it was a very clever marketing ploy by them. They made a drink for their Jameson, almost making it to what Jaeger bombs are to Jägermeister. But I remember we used to get mystery shoppers coming into our nightclubs and our bars, and if one of the bartenders didn't pour it or didn't put the lime in a certain manner, we would get an absolute, very aggressive email from Pernod Ricard. So I managed a number of different nightclubs and bars around Cork City while I was in my college days in my early 20s, and it was great seeing the industry from the on-trade side of things. But there was definitely always in the back of my mind, I consciously wanted to kind of make a move towards the brand side of things and the supplier side of things. I remember actually one lecturer in UCC in an international business lecture. I think it was a 9 a.m. lecture after a night out the night before, so I don't think many people in the class wanted to be there, and you could see he was losing our attention quite quickly. And he asked a question that caught our attention very, very fast. He said, "Who here wants to be rich?" And obviously we all put up our hands. And as I said, the lecturer was an international business. But he said, if all of you here want to be rich, and he said, you want to do it internationally, and he said, if you want to do it working for an Irish brand, he said, there's 2 ways you can go about it. He said, number 1, you can go and you can sell infant baby formula in China. Now, I don't know about you, Marcus, but I don't have much interest in infant baby formula. And he said, number 2, you can go and you can sell Irish whiskey in the USA. Now, that got my attention, because growing up in Cork, you can't but have an affinity for Irish whiskey. I grew up 10 minutes from the Jameson distillery. I like to say I grew up in the fumes of the Jameson distillery. And I actually remember for my 18th birthday, my best friends all chipped in together and bought me a bottle of the Jameson distillery exclusive 12-year-old with my name on it. And I got a quick education in whiskey that night, because at my 18th birthday party that night, I opened the bottle in front of all of them. And went to make a Jameson ginger and lime because that's what I was used to doing with Jameson from my bar days and my nightclub days. And they quickly grabbed my hand and stopped me from doing that and told me, no, this is a 12-year distillery exclusive. This is something to be sipped and neat and savoured. And that's what we did that night. We sipped that whiskey and we savoured it neat. And that really opened my eyes because it was my 18th birthday. I didn't have much experience drinking whiskey, only really serving whiskey up until that point. But that opened my eyes into what the world of spirits is and what the world of drinking spirits neat is like, and how a spirit can be appreciated neat. But it really started a passion in me, because when I started researching Jameson then, I realised that every single bottle of Jameson in the world was made 10 minutes from where I live, and that Jameson and Paddy's and Powers and all of those great Irish whiskey brands are sold in nearly every country in the world. That gave me great pride and passion as a Corkman. So I had a big affinity for it, for whiskey and for spirits, for all things spirits. And I kind of had it consciously in my mind that I wanted to move towards the supplier side of things. And an opportunity came along through IBEC, actually, and the Irish government. It's a program called the IBEC Global Graduates Program. And I was offered an interview with two companies, Calac Single Malt Vodka and Hyde Irish Whiskey, to go over to the United States and be their USA brand ambassador and USA sales manager. So, two great Cork brands, and this being my dream job, I jumped at this opportunity and headed off to Chicago. So I spent just under 2 years over there in Chicago representing those brands, and that was a phenomenal experience because I was representing the brands in over 34 different states across America. And for anyone who knows the American market, I can tell you there's 50 different ways to sell whiskey or any type of alcohol or Irish spirit in the American market, because each state is almost like an individual country itself. So I spent the bones of about just under 2 years over there working in the US market for those brands, and that was such an amazing experience, and I learned an awful lot. And then I came back just over 2 years ago and started working further and working full-time with Origin Spirits and with Patrick Shelley, and came into the company and took over this portfolio, and I'm now kind of the sales manager for the portfolio internationally.
Oh, that's fantastic. You will be sad to hear, by the way, when me and all my mates back in Australia, when we turned 18, we did the same thing. We pitched together, we got someone a bottle of whiskey, and we got a special 18-year-old release Jameson for a mate of mine who loved his Jameson ginger and lime.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it was. I can't remember the exact branding, but it was in a wooden box, and it had a ship and a compass carved into it. And I believe it was an exclusive for either travel retail or for Australia. Fantastic stuff. We drank.
Don't tell me what he did with it.
Yeah, you know what happened. We drank the entire of the bottle with ginger and lime. But it was fantastic. I told you might know Stuart Quayle from El Mulligan Whiskey Shop.
Oh yeah, Stuart and Michael and all the guys inside in El Mulligan's Whiskey Shop. I think that's where we first met. Marcus was inside in El Mulligan's. Yeah, they're doing fantastic things, and they're putting on some great tastings at the moment, some online tastings, and I believe they're doing the first virtual Irish Whiskey Festival. So fair play to the guys there. They're putting on some great content and great events for everybody who's in lockdown and keeping everyone entertained.
Well, I'm really looking forward to that festival. I told Stuart that story, and I think Stuart had a mild heart attack when I...
Stuart is passionate about Irish whiskey, and he's very passionate about how it is to be drunk, so I can imagine he was pretty upset at that point.
But I just want to ask...
Have you ever seen Stuart's tasting notes on Twitter, Marcus? I have never seen more thorough tasting notes come out of anyone. Stuart, I have to say, you do the best tasting notes out of anyone I've ever seen on Twitter.
I had a great tasting with him where we sat at the back of the shop and we just drank whiskey for a while, and we were discussing what specific type of pepper was in the whiskey. Was it white? Was it black? Was it a solid or a liquid? Was it whole peppers? Was it grated peppers? Fantastic guy, and really worth tuning into as well. I do want to ask you a question here because Mank Drama, who is, I believe they joined Twitter about half an hour ago, 45 minutes ago, is asking if they need to get a bottle of it somehow. Now they're in the UK, and I'm gonna guess Manchester from the name. Is there anywhere in the UK that Mank Drama could get a bottle of your Carac?
Yeah, so Carac whiskey is available to purchase in the UK through the Irish Malts International store. And very, very shortly, we will be up on the Whiskey Exchange website as well, available through specialty brands. So at the moment, Irish Malts website, international store. You can also order off Celtic Whiskey, and then shortly it'll be available on the Whiskey Exchange, Manc Drummer.
Well, there you go. Yeah, they apparently are from Manchester. Yeah, Irish Whiskey International, Celtic Whiskey Shop, and soon Whiskey Exchange. So get yourself a bottle and join in, because this stuff is bloody fantastic. And as I understand, well, a vatting of 10 casks, there's not too many going around, so you do want to try it where you can. As for yourself, we spoke before the broadcast, and you said you're a big rugby fan.
Yes, definitely.
Big rugby fan as well. I love rugby. And I think
I've heard that.
there's one person here who's also been a massive rugby fan. So I got to ask, the World Cup, what were your thoughts? What do you think?
Well, I can tell you, we needed a lot of whiskey after that World Cup performance. Yeah, it was tough to take. It was very tough to take. I think the Irish team, they definitely underperformed. I'd say they'd be disappointed themselves. I think they're a lot better than what they showed in the quarterfinal versus New Zealand. They just didn't turn up. Nothing went right for us on the day. The bounce of a ball wouldn't even go right for us. I think if we played New Zealand the day before or the day after, we would have given them a much better game. Whether we would have beaten them, I don't know, but it was very disappointing. But, the great thing about Irish rugby, Marcus, throughout all the provinces and the national team, we have so many great young players coming through there now at the moment. Unfortunately, their potential and their growth has probably been stunted at the moment. Hopefully they're all training away. But yeah, it was a tough year for Irish rugby, especially for me as a Munster rugby fan. Munster not getting out of their pool in the Heineken Cup, but I'm pretty sure that both Munster and Ireland will come back stronger next year. So looking forward to that.
I've no doubt about that. I mean, my thoughts watching Ireland play were Ireland played fantastically, and every single year Ireland are getting better and better. So we can only wait to see what happens next. I did not deal well with Australia losing. It was better than when we lost to New Zealand in the final in 2019. I dealt with it better this time. But the one thing I had going was I wanted Australia to win, and then the next game I wanted to win was South Africa. So I was happy there.
Well, there was some amazing pictures came out of South Africa and some amazing stories of the rugby players who came from absolutely nothing. I think their captains, Khaleesi, he literally came from a township and didn't even have enough money to have shoes for himself. So for him to go on and become the World Cup winning captain and stand on the international stage is absolutely fascinating. And there's actually, if you look into him further, his mother had an awful lot of children, I think, with different gentlemen throughout her time, and they were all orphaned off and they were in very poor living conditions. And when he went on to make his money in rugby, I think he went out and found all of these brothers and sisters of his and adopted all of them. So him and his wife now have all of these adopted kids that he is looking after. So he seems to be an absolutely fascinating guy and a great guy.
No, definitely. Now, also, something else to do with rugby and also with whiskey is Penderyn from Wales have released as part of their Icons of Wales whiskey series, I believe, Icons of Wales series, they've released that a whiskey that's commemorating Welsh rugby.
Yes.
Do you think we'd ever see a whiskey commemorating Irish rugby? And if we did, who would you want to produce it?
I've absolutely no doubt, with all the distilleries popping up in Ireland at the moment and the popularity of rugby in this country, that someone will do a whiskey in honour of the Irish rugby team. I saw that when Ireland won the Six Nations a few years ago, Teeling actually sent a bottle to all of the players congratulating them, which I thought was a very nice touch, in fairness to them. I've actually tasted that Penderyn Grand Slam edition, the Portwood finish. It's a stunning whiskey. Fascinating stuff coming out of them. They've only got, they single distill. They've got a pot, they have a hybrid still, it's a pot and column still. So all of their stuff is, it's quite a blank canvas, and it really picks up the flavours from the different wood finishes that they go into. Who would I like to see do it? Anybody. It'd be great to see. Hopefully a few people will do it over a number of different years, because we'll be winning so many different competitions that all the whiskey companies will get a shot at doing it.
I love how diplomatic you're being there, and you're not saying this person shouldn't do it. That's fantastic. So I guess in the future, what can we expect to see from Origin Spirits? You've spoken about the whiskey side of things, but in terms of things like vodka, gin, any other spirits, is there anything else that you guys have considered? Maybe we could try and make the first Irish tequila or anything. Is there anything?
So when Orna Black Gin came out, I remember Patrick saying, he said, right, this is it. You know, it was our third product. He said, I'm finished. I'm not going to do any more products. Um, and now when Kirk has come out, and hopefully when we've three different releases of Kirk out there onto the market, we said, right, this is it. No more products. We're finished at that. But as I said to you earlier, Marcus, pretty much nearly like myself and Patrick speak every single day on the phone or else in person when we can meet up in person. And anytime we're together, we're saying, did you see such and such a person did this finish? Imagine if you took that finish and brought that to this particular category, what you could do. So we're constantly innovating. We're constantly trying things out. We've had multiple different distillation trials on numerous different ideas and projects down in West Cork distillers that haven't worked out, and some of those nobody will ever hear about. Because we're very strict on nothing leaves the distillery unless we're happy with it. Not just happy with it, but that we think that it's one of the top premium spirits in its actual category, because we're very much in the luxury premium sector of the market and doing quite well internationally. We're in over 16 international markets, and we do very well in the likes of Michelin star restaurants, five-star hotels, top whiskey bars, top mixology bars. So that's going quite well for us. So anything we ever release, Marcus, will be quite premium. And whatever we do, it will always try to use some different element of the Irish terroir. If you take, for example, Callac, we use 100% Irish malted barley. Callac peat cask, we're using 100% Irish malted barley and Irish peat from a local bog in West Cork. Orna Brack, we're using 100% Irish malted barley to make the base spirit, and we're using those Douglas fir pine needles. Obviously, then in Curragh, as we've said, I'm not getting the screen right at all, you have the 100% Irish malted barley base, and then you have the Irish seaweed. So we are constantly looking at the Irish landscape and the Irish terroir and trying to get ideas as to what we could do in different spirits categories. And what I'd say is I'd never say never. We probably will just focus on the whiskey, for getting the whiskey going and the products that we have here for the time being. But I wouldn't be surprised if you saw more innovations coming out of us further down the line.
No, your innovations are fantastic. And just with a quick message to someone that's popped up in the comments, Irish Talking, you've not tried it yet. They've not tried it yet. It sounds interesting, but you should definitely try the Correct, the Atlantic Kombu Seaweed cast. It is fantastic.
Dutch Seaweed Geneva, is that what I'm saying?
Yeah, apparently I heard it's a Dutch Seaweed Geneva.
Wow, that sounds fascinating.
Oh, it's Dennis. Oh, good day, Dennis. Nice to see you, mate. Brilliant to see Dennis. If you don't know Dennis, when you next go to Holland, you're gonna have to catch up with Dennis. Fantastic guy, absolutely stunning love of whiskey, in particular Irish whiskey. Really loves everything that's coming out of Ireland, and
I think is that Rowan O'Gara on his cover photo as well?
Say again?
Is that Rowan O'Gara, the rugby player, on his cover photo as well?
I'll be honest, I don't know. I don't know the rugby team that well. Dennis, is it your man from the Irish side? We'll find out shortly. But oh no, it's Dennis. That's actually Dennis.
Oh wow, looks like he's wearing an Irish jersey. You look very athletic, Dennis.
He says it's not the best photo, but I think it's a stunning photo. Dennis, you should definitely try some of this, and Stephen and everyone who's watching right now and watching later, you should catch up with Dennis, because his love for Irish whiskey and what he's done for Irish whiskey in Holland is absolutely stunning, and just all around a great guy to have a pint with or a whiskey with.
Look forward to meeting him.
All right, you should do. What we'll do now is we will head on quickly to the famous quiz and anagram round.
I've been looking forward to this.
All right. Now, I've got a couple of questions for you here. The first 5 concern celebrity spirits brands, and then I've got a couple of Irish whiskey anagrams. Now, don't feel pressured at all. Some people have done very good. Some people have done not so good. I'm sure you do fantastic. So
we'll give it a go.
First of all, what is the name of Bob Dylan's whiskey?
Bob Dylan's whiskey. Is it Heaven's Door?
It is Heaven's Door. Heaven's Door. I believe it's bourbon. I could be too
Yeah,
sure. I'm not
I
entirely
was
sure.
looking. I think I was looking into it recently to see what he was doing with it. It sounds fascinating. I think it's sourced at the moment,
Mm.
but they're building a distillery, I believe, in an old church, similar to the guys at Pierce Lyons, I believe.
Yeah, I did read that, and I think construction was in 2018 or 2019, so no doubt it's probably finished right now. But it'd be interesting to sip some of Bob Dylan's whiskey and listen to some Bob Dylan. That interesting.
Did you hear? Did you
So
hear about what Dave Pickerel, um, God bless him, that he's passed on since, from Whistlepig was doing with Metallica, where they were aging the whiskey and they were actually playing Metallica rock music while the whiskey was aging, and they say it actually did influence the spirit and change the taste characteristic. So I believe that's out in the market. I hope that's not one of your questions that's coming up.
no, 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 that's not at all. But as a fantastic sidebar, firstly, by the way, Mank Drama has just ordered one of your bottles.
Oh,
So
thank you very much.
get someone else along with the for the correct whiskey. Mank
You've
Drama,
given me an
fantastic.
idea there now,
Really,
Marcus.
really,
We
really
could
love it.
we could age an Irish whiskey to Christy Moore music.
Well, you mentioned Metallica, but also, do you know Manhattan Baby Bourbon?
I'm not familiar with it.
So, really good stuff. Someone told me a long time ago, and this could have been completely false, so anyone in the comments, feel free to call me out here. Someone told me that they actually have subwoofers around the warehouse that are constantly playing at a very low decibel to vibrate the whiskey and mimic the effects that would have happened centuries ago when you would have taken the whiskey in the cask on either a horse and cart or
Yeah,
on a boat down the river. I don't know if that's true, but I've always been curious to try a whiskey like that. So
very clever.
I will give that a try. I think yeah, that could be something interesting. Anyway, we've now got something else. Another question. What is the name of George Clooney's tequila?
Uh, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's quite nice. I like it a lot. A lot of those celebrity spirits, they uh, they sometimes aren't the nicest, but I mean, it's Casamigos.
He's got it. He's got it in mind. Casamigos.
Some money they got for that.
Say again.
I think they sold it on for $1 billion.
I mean, just as the sheer question, if you had $1 billion,
Where'd
what's
even
the
go with
first
that?
thing you do?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah,
I would build a distillery straight away. I'd say we'd just about cover the costs.
I think you could maybe build two distilleries with $1 billion, maybe. And
Build the best distillery ever.
oh my God, you could build just you could build the best distillery, as you say. That would be amazing if you just having that money at your disposal. Personally, I would buy probably a lot of casks, a lot of empty casks, and I buy a lot of new make spirit from all around the world, and just
Mhm.
start maturing myself just to see what's going on. But I like your answer better, to be honest.
Well, then you see, there's contrasting views. If you look at, say, what the likes of the guys in Cologne are doing, I might say build the best distillery ever with $1 billion, but the guys in Cologne, they seem to be in Brendan Carty's shed up there with their little stills, and they're doing fantastic stuff. And the whiskey they're coming out with, I know none of the whiskey that they're releasing at the moment is their own distillate, but the whiskies they're releasing at the moment are fantastic whiskies. So, is the best distillery in the world the most expensive? There's different
No,
viewpoints to it.
you're completely right there. Like all the bells and whistles. I mean, look at the new Macallan distillery over in Scotland. The amount of money that's been sunk into it from a production standpoint, but also from a like aesthetic standpoint. It looks. I mean, there is the thing that is it's Teletubby land because it looks like it's out of Teletubbies. Um, but is it going to be the best distillery in the world?
Distillery, yeah.
But if you could buy some land, a shed, some stills, get together with your mates, wouldn't that be the best distillery in the world as well? You know, in its own way.
Probably would.
Yeah, I I would not trust any of my mates around stills or alcohol. Actually, come to think of it,
Nor would I.
but don't trust me around stills. Um, so next question I've got here, and you'll get this in one, but there's a follow-up.
Okay.
What is the name of Conor McGregor's whiskey?
Proper number 12.
Why is it called Proper 12?
It's relation to the district in Dublin that he's from. I believe he's from Dublin 12. So
Yeah.
that's why it's called Proper number 12. Yeah, there's been a bit of confusion about that, people thinking that it might be 12 years old. And it's been a fairly controversial whiskey, but I can tell you, I was in Chicago at the time when it launched, and it caused absolute consternation. Connor himself actually flew over to do a tasting at the local Binny's store, which is like a supermarket for whiskey and spirits. They're absolutely fantastic places. And I can tell you, the queues were down the road, around the corner, like they were queues for miles. So whether you love it or hate it, it's definitely gotten people tasting Irish whiskey who would never have drank Irish whiskey before, and hopefully it'll bring them on a journey into Irish whiskey where they might discover more interesting brands and more innovative brands and more well-developed brands.
I mean, I do agree that we do, in the whiskey community, a lot of people tend to, you know, toss aside things like Proper 12, Hague Club is another big one. But the thing about this, when you've got someone like Conor McGregor or David Beckham behind your whiskey, that brings in so many new drinkers, and that expands the category. These guys, you know, this could be the next big drinker. The next Jim Swan could be among these whiskey drinkers, and they just don't know it yet. So it is interesting to see that come about.
Yeah, there's a great saying in the Irish whiskey industry, Marcus, that everyone kind of puts out there, is that a rising tide lifts all boats. And I think that's very apt for the Irish whiskey industry, because we've got great help from other companies and other distillers throughout our time as a business, and we've tried to help as many people as we could. So the more people drinking Irish whiskey or Irish spirits around the world, the better it is for the category.
No, you're completely right. Another thing I've noticed within the Irish whiskey category is that people are they're quick to say, when you're at a festival and you see an Irish stand, they're very quick to say that they're representing Irish whiskey. They're not representing the brand behind them. First and foremost, they represent Irish whiskey, and they want to share Irish, which is something I've always really admired about the industry and about the category, because you don't get it in every category. And
no,
it's
definitely not.
really neat to see everyone coming together like that. The next question.
Mm-hmm.
What is the name of Dan Aykroyd's vodka?
Dan Aykroyd's vodka.
If anyone in the comments if you're watching live, feel free to comment if you think you know the answer. By all means, go ahead.
I'm gonna have to pass on this. I haven't heard of this product, so I'm gonna have to pass on it.
Now this is Dan Aykroyd's vodka is Crystal Head.
Go away. That was very popular in very popular in Cork in the nightclub scene. All the nightclubs that I was working in, we had to have the Crystal Head vodka. I'm sure people didn't know who owned it or how it was distilled, but it was the in thing in Cork at the time to be seen at a reserved table with a bottle of Crystal Head vodka. Thankfully, times have changed and people are drinking nicer. Well, I don't know what the vodka tastes like, so I can't speak to that. But people are looking for more innovative if their vodkas now at the moment.
I have tried it. Now, I would say it's not as good as your vodka, but your vodka is the nicest vodka I've ever had. So,
oh, thank you for saying that. Appreciate it.
Oh, but yeah, Crystal Head, that was founded by Dan Aykroyd and John Alexander. And by the way, Mank Drama has not only ordered the Kurak, he's actually ordered the Kurak Founders Cask.
Wow. Well, on my calculations, at the start of this week, we had about 20 bottles of the Founders Cask left in circulation. So we're definitely down to 19 and probably less. So anybody listening in now, if you do want a piece of Irish whiskey history, make sure to go out to either Celtic Whiskey. I think there's a bottle or two left in Bradley's in Cork, Worldwide Wines down in Waterford, and Irish Malts on their international store have literally, there's only about 19 bottles left. There's so little bottles left that we have tastings lined up in a number of different international whiskey societies, and we sold out of all our stock. So I actually had to go back into Celtic Whiskey here in Dublin and buy some stock back from them to do the tastings. So that'll just show you how rare it is, guys.
Oh yeah. Drink it as well. Don't put it on a shelf.
Please do. Open it
You
up.
want to try it. And the last one, which you'll get pretty quickly. What is the name of Ryan Reynolds gin?
Yeah, I know this one. It's Aviation Gin. Which again gets a lot of stick, but it does the gin category an awful lot of good.
Have you tried it? Is it good?
It is. It's actually decent stuff. Quite citrus forward, which I like in a gin. But yeah, no, it is. It's good stuff, I have to say. This is the part I was worried about now, the anagrams.
This is now the anagrams. You are correct. So for those who have not watched previously, I have here a set of anagrams. Now,
Better take a sip of whiskey for this one.
Oh yeah. Today's anagrams are all concerning Irish whiskey brands. Every single anagram, every single word here or phrase here is an anagram of an Irish whiskey brand. So, your first one, and to everyone in the comments, please feel free to join in. If you think you know it, just comment, go away, join in, it makes it more fun. Your first one, Loyal Hob.
Loyal Hob. So it's got two L's. Presume they go together. Do you want me to write it down here, Marcus, so you don't have to hold it up?
No. I will have to just
Loyal.
drink like this.
I have it. They do a beautiful single grain, finished in a port cask, and it's Ballyhoo.
It is Ballyhoo. Fantastic whiskey, really great stuff. I should point out, by the way, that I hold it up on a whiteboard because when I put it into the comment section, it gets flagged as spam. Yeah, but Ballyhoo, fantastic guys, fantastic whiskey.
I think their Spade and Bushel release of they just released it was the first, as far as I'm aware, a Maroney cast finished Irish whiskey in the last few weeks.
I've not tried it, and I'm racking my brains for the first Amarone.
Sorry, I stand corrected. I know Teeling did a single cask a while ago in Amarone, but the first commercially available Amarone cask I've seen anyway.
Yeah. Well, Teeling have done pretty much every cask release you could think of, with the exception of a Seaweed cask. But you're completely right. First commercial Amarone cask release. I've got to get me a bottle of that because that sounds damn tasty.
It does. I know Hinch up in the north I think they're working on a 12-year-old Amarone finish, and I got a sneak tasting of that off Jamie, and I have to say it's absolutely beautiful liquid, so I'm looking forward to tasting the Spade and Bushel Amarone cask.
I mean, Hinch are fantastic from the get-go, and the guys, they are a class act as well.
Well, on that point, I'd just like to put out there's a lot of noise coming out of County Down at the moment saying that it's the home of distilling in Ireland because of all the new distilleries popping up there. But Cork, for the last however many years, has kept Irish distilling alive and is the true home of Irish distilling. With Middleton, with West Cork Distillers, with the new Clonakilty distillery, those lads in County Down, they're not taking that title off us.
So, do you think that you'll see in the future you'll have the spiritual home of Irish whiskey in Cork, and then you'll have the new home or the new epicenter of Irish whiskey could be elsewhere?
I actually think you can nearly see different regions around Ireland. There's fantastic stuff going on down in County Clare there at the moment between what they're doing at JJ Corrie. You've got the guys at Glendry. You've got the Burn distillery popping up. So there seems to be a distillation hub popping up there. There's, you've got the Connacht distillery up in the west of Ireland. There seems to be a few more distilleries popping up in that region. I think there's going to be a bit of a north, south, east, west divide in Irish whiskey, which would be great, which would be fantastic because, you look over at the Scotch industry, you have the Speyside, you have the Isles. You have all these different categories in these different regions that people talk about and people celebrate. Wouldn't it be great if we had the same here in Irish whiskey? an Irish
No, I
Scotch.
mean, we're going to move away from the anagrams for a brief second there because what you've mentioned is incredibly interesting. If you were to divide Ireland into whiskey regions, how would you divide it? How many regions would you have, and where would you kind of draw the line?
See, it'd be very hard to say right now, Marcus, because there's what is there 31 functioning distilleries, but I think I heard a statistic the other day that there's another 28 in the
Mm,
planning, in the pipeline. Um, so within the next 10 years, that means there'll probably be 60 different distilleries in Ireland. So if you couldn't really draw the plans now at the moment because that would be upsetting an awful lot of distilleries to come. But I think a fair way of doing it at the moment is north, south, east, west. It'd be very tough to divide it up into the counties, the 32 different counties of Ireland. So the way I reference it personally is north, south, east, west, or Munster, Leinster, Ulster, Connacht.
that's really interesting because my thought there was you probably know that before it was known as Speyside, the Speyside region, everyone would preface their whiskey name with Glenlivet. So you would have Glenlivet, whatever. I've suddenly forgotten every distillery in Speyside. Do you think
Well,
you would
Macallan.
ever see, or you could ever see the Cork region known as the Middleton region? For example, you could have Middleton Clonakilty.
No, I certainly don't think it'll be that way because the other distilleries are doing fantastic things. Like West Cork Distillers, where we operate out of, what they're doing for the Irish whiskey industry at the moment is absolutely fantastic. There's the amount of brands out there on the market at the moment that people wouldn't even realise were made down in West Cork Distillers.
And
Clonakilty Distillery are doing great things, and I know there's other people, other brands who are talking about doing things in Cork City and building up Cork City. There's other people who are talking about doing things in Shannon. I think Cork is definitely going to be a real hub for distillation, but I think it'll be each individual brand rather than the Middleton region as such.
and I do want to give a quick shout out to Dennis here, who has just come in with something, and he said, "Don't do regions." And I do think that having a region name, north, south, east, west, or via the counties, could be interesting. But I don't think there is regional variance in Irish whiskey that you might see in like the Scotch whiskey. I, Regional variance hasn't been a thing for a long time to a huge extent in Scotch. That's a very bold statement I'm making there. But I don't think you'll see regional variance in Irish whiskey. You will see potentially region as a name, but it
Mhm.
won't affect the overall style.
Yeah, of course. Each distillery will have their own style.
Mm. We can't wait. Honestly, can't wait to see it. The next 10 years in Irish whiskey are going to be stunning. Anyway,
Well, the moment in Irish whiskey, like every single day, you turn on your Twitter feed, you turn on your Facebook feed. There's a new brand being announced. There's a new distillery being announced. There's a new product being released. A new innovation being released. It's an absolutely incredible time to be involved in the industry as both a fan and a consumer, but as well on the business side of things. It's so exciting, and I think we're the number one selling spirit category in the world, bar none, which is fantastic to see. And I've said this to a few different people a few different times. Like when I worked in the USA, to go somewhere like, say, Arkansas and walk into a bar in the middle of nowhere and to see, West Cork Distillers 10-year-old on the wall, Hyde Irish Whiskey from Cork on the wall, Paddy Whiskey and Jameson Whiskey on the wall, four different companies from Cork, Ireland. When you're growing up, that you don't even realise how big and how successful these are internationally, but flying the flag for Ireland all over the world and in these far-flung places like Arkansas, it's great to see, and it kind of fills me up with pride as an Irishman.
there was I spent 3 months in Belgium. Mankdram, by the way, has to go, but Mankdram, fantastic of you to come on and
Pleasure meeting you.
all your whiskey. We raise a glass to you. Thank you very much, Sash. When I was in Belgium, we there was a bar nearby me, and the fellow who lived there, who owned the place, was from County Kerry. He lived
Wow.
in Antwerp, Belgium. He was originally from County Kerry, but because he was from Kerry, he had on his bar every single dingle that had been released. He
Wow.
had batch one, two, three, four. That was all that had been released at that time. He had the cask strength variant of all of them. He had all the pot stills being released at that time. He had all the founders cask variants. And seeing something like that, walking into a bar in Belgium that has that I don't know any bars in Ireland that still
That
have
has that
that
collection,
kind
yeah.
of dingle range. That was fantastic. That was
Fills you up with
fantastic
pride,
to
doesn't
see.
it?
Oh, it was stunning. Got quite drunk there. Great place. I'll have to find the name of it and send it to you.
At another point. Do
I
do
think it was
check
it
it
was
out when I'm over there.
a ladies bar in Antwerp. Absolutely amazing. Anyway, your second anagram,
Here we go.
JFK was shot from a city knoll.
Just
I know
gonna
it was
jot
meant to be
these down.
grassy knoll, but I didn't have the letters, so a city knoll.
So there's two L's again. K. Not many Irish whiskies with a K in it. City now.
Now the Y is a big clue there. Oh,
I have it.
Mick, you can't see it on the. Well, I don't know if you can see it on your end, but Mick Drammer has it, despite the fact they have spelt it incorrectly.
So I bought a bottle of their single batch recently, which I think was just awarded best small batch or best blended Irish whiskey in the world at the World Whiskey Awards. I think it was. It's Clonakilty Distillery.
It is Clonakilty Distillery.
And I'd just like to say, on the platform that we're on here with Marcus, I can't see any of the comments unless Marcus brings it up on screen, so I couldn't see anything anyone said in the comments.
I will point out to both Mick from Still Surreal and to Mick Drammer. Clonakilty starts with a C. The K
It is spelled with a K.
is where, they've flipped it around. But fantastic whiskey. I managed to find one of their Rioja cask strengths a few days ago, and I drank it within those few days. Absolutely.
Well, they sold out very fast.
I've thrown the bottle out now, but that was Drink Store in Stony Batter had it, and oh my god, it's a
great guys up there in Drink Store. In fairness, they carry a great selection. Their top shelf, I'm always really interested to walk in there and see what they've got in their top shelf.
Well, curiously, that's also where I bought your bottle.
Oh, fantastic!
They are fantastic. They carry such a range of products, and if I ever think this is all sold out, I go to Drink Store, and they always have it.
Well, actually, funnily enough, I won't mention any names here, but the day after the Irish Whiskey Awards, when the Irishman 17 was awarded Best Irish Whiskey of the Year I think it was last October down in Dingle, I came back up to Dublin and I was looking for a bottle of the Irishman 17 because up until that point I tasted it before and I thought it was one of the best kept secrets in Irish whiskey. So when I saw it won the Best Irish Whiskey of the Year, I was like, I better pick up a bottle quick before it becomes sold out. And the Drink Store in Stony Batter were the only place that had bottles left. So I got in my car and I drove up there as fast as I could to get my hands on a bottle. And I bumped into 3 different distillers, actual distillers from 3 different distilleries in Ireland, who obviously were doing the same thing as what I was doing. 3 very well-known distillers. One of them you've had on your show before. I won't say anything more.
Shit, I can't remember. I've got a list
Anyway,
of
on the anagrams.
Okay, I know who you're talking about. He is, by the way, one of the nicest guys I've ever met. He only has time for people, and I cannot wait to see what they're putting out. And my God, what was the name of that stuff they released? Was it Casa Tavo?
Cortado. Palo Cortado.
Yes, stunning.
Yeah.
Just out of this world amazing. Anyway, your third anagram.
Okay, we're going well so far.
If you were a teenager in ancient times, you would have had Roman acne.
Roman acne.
Mm.
Nothing's jumping off the page at me here, so I'm trying to work it out. Is it just Irish whiskey brands, or can it be, say, distilleries, or what's the parameters we're working under here, Marcus?
Irish whiskey brands and distilleries. I can tell you this is unique. This for a long time, this was the only Irish whiskey of its kind that was consistently released.
Of course. Yeah. It's Connemara.
It is Connemara. Yeah, Mick, you got that one right. Yeah, Connemara, some Roman acne.
How do you
I
come
was
up with
happy about
these?
that one. Say again.
How do you come up with these?
I get very drunk and I sit down with this and I make anagrams.
Jesus,
It's
I definitely it'd be hard enough to do sober. I definitely couldn't do that if I was drunk.
I I haven't seen my girlfriend in 4 months. I
Oh,
am
so you're looking for ways to
I
entertain
am
yourself.
yeah I have a lot of time on my hands. If you're watching Hun, well actually she edits these. When you watch this Hun, I love you.
I'd just like to say we don't condone getting drunk. We're very much responsible drinkers here. We condone drinking responsibly.
Yeah, sure. I'm not sponsored by anyone. I don't give a damn what you say. All right. Now I've got how much? What are we at? Where are we at? All right. So here we are. Number 4. I thought this was funny. You can't
At the
really put
ready.
in your sentence, but your next anagram is snot legs.
Snot legs.
This is pretty new.
I'm feeling the G is probably the letter that goes at the start. Is what I'm feeling. But then
I want to point out Mick, you have it, but you've spelt it wrong again. Swap the second and third letters around, and you've got it.
nothing's jumping out at me again here. Um, I have it. Do you know what? I was at the launch party in 1661 with the guys, and I have to say their 26-year-old cask strength is one of the best Irish whiskies I've ever tasted, and quite competitively priced as well. In fairness to, I'd like to give a shout out to Dave Mulligan in 1661 on this point because he does fantastic tasting events when they're allowed to be open. But the brand you're looking at is Gelston's.
Yeah, Gilston's. Great brand, and also you're completely right to shout out Dave from 1661. I wandered past today and I stuck my head in the door and just say g'day them, because 1661, for those who are in Ireland and also for anyone who is planning a trip to Ireland once all this is over, bar 1661 is bloody fantastic. The guys there know their cocktails and their whiskey like the
One of the
back of
best
their
bars in
hand,
the world.
and
Takeaway cocktail service at the moment.
they are running a takeaway cocktail service. They will make your cocktail and deliver it to your door, which is one of the most, that's innovation on par with Origin Spirits, right?
So we have
That's
we have
fantastic.
our Orna Brack gin is in a very summery cocktail there with them with Wexford strawberries and elderflower liqueur. So it's launching this weekend, I believe. So keep an eye out for that, guys.
We'll definitely keep an eye out for that. Dennis is scooting off. Dennis, fantastic to see you,
Great
mate.
chatting to you, Dennis.
We'd love to have you on here, Dennis. I'll have to bring you on to actually have a chat and a whiskey sometime. But next time I'm in the Netherlands, we'll catch up. And next time Stephen is in the Netherlands, I'll make sure to give you guys each your contact details. Just a
Definitely.
great dude, to be honest. Okay.
This is going far better than I expected now, I have to say.
I mean, I considered anagrams of German distilleries, but I thought that might be too difficult.
That would have been tough. The umlauts would have been a bit of a giveaway from certain distilleries.
I mean, Germany, to be fair, Germany's got about 200 or 300 distilleries at this point in time.
Isn't it great to see? You know, you've nearly 100 in France. You've 24 distilleries in England alone. You know, we think that we're in the middle of a renaissance here for Irish whiskey, but whiskey worldwide is in the middle of a renaissance, and I think we've got the name from our history for being one of the best producers. So the more that whiskey rises, the more Irish whiskey will rise. So it's great to see.
Worst thing, Germany holds, I think, the most amount of distilleries in the world. I think, I think the next is either the US or Australia.
Mhm.
Then you head down to Scotland, and there's so many. Not a word of a lie. Where I grew up in Australia, within the 4 years I've been away, within 10 kilometers, 5 distilleries have opened up.
Wow.
Which is, I'm going back in October for my sister. My sister is getting married, which is fantastic. And when I'm back there, I'm going to go for a wander one day, and I'm going to walk between all these different distilleries because they're literally close enough that I can. I will be
That'll be a
back
fantastic experience.
pissed at the end of the day, but world whiskey is opening up more and more every single day, and I love it. Anyway, your next anagram is
Pen at the ready.
Go Serpent.
Go Serpent.
Go Serpent.
Go Serpent.
Now, for those who are a fan of this broadcast, you will recognize the distillery that distills this whiskey, but the brand name is new. That's a weird way to describe it. I've had the distillery as an anagram on the show before, but I've never had this brand as an anagram.
Again, nothing's jumping out at me. I've said that every time. T T G. P. I think you might have me on this one, Marcus.
This brand recently re-released a discontinued line. When I say recently, I mean within the past year to 18 months, they re-released a discontinued line, and there's talk of them releasing a new line. Mick has it. You've got it.
Jesus, Mick, in fairness, is very sharp, isn't he? He's in there quick.
Mick is fantastic at these, honestly. I need to get him on sometime. Mick,
You're gonna have to give it to me, Marcus. I don't think I'm gonna get this one.
Green Spot.
Ah. Should have got that one as a Corkman.
Green Spot from Middleton Distillery recently re-released Red Spot after a bloody long time of it being discontinued.
You know, I went for Red Spot and I was like, no, Red Spot isn't there, so it must be something else. Why I didn't think of Green Spot, I don't know.
That was a very poor clue I gave you because it was making you think of something else. All right. I've got one more anagram for you.
Okay.
And
I need to make up for the last one now, come on.
At the risk of alienating all of my British viewers, this is David Cameron's favorite whiskey.
Sir Ian Ham.
Sir Ian.
Gonna have to write it down again. It's amazing how some people just have a mind for this stuff. They just kind of see it straight away. It takes me a few minutes to get it, but I normally do.
This whiskey has been mentioned on this podcast, this brand.
The M. There's something with M. That should jump out at me, really, shouldn't it?
The M. To Randles Kiara, who's just commented.
Well, that's my sister.
You are thinking of the correct whiskey. You have the last and the second letter the wrong way around.
Oh Jesus! If she gets it before I do, I'll never live that down.
Oh, is this your wife?
No, this is my sister.
What's your sister? Your sister definitely has it. She spelt it incorrectly, but she has it. Oh, if I go like this, actually, there we go. That's much more comfortable. Yeah.
No, Marcus. Again, I don't think I'm going to get this one. For some reason, I just can't pick it out. The other ones jumped off the page at me eventually, but there's nothing coming up here.
Irishman.
Ah, the Irishman, of course.
I was very proud of that anagram, by the way.
That was. It's very good.
David Cameron, like, come on, that was. Here I was thinking that would cause a stir, and it got nothing. It got nothing.
But I'm happy. I was petrified. I wouldn't get any of them right, so I'm happy that I got a few.
No, you got a good amount of those. I do not know where you. I don't have any type of ladder, but I would tell you are coming. You're in the top 5. I realize I have had 10 people on the broadcast, but you're up there. You're up there. Richard last week set a very poor precedence by getting pretty much everything immediately. That man is fantastic.
He does, yeah. From McMyra, I've seen a few of his tastings. They've got talking about innovative products. Like they use juniper with their barley or with their peat to when they're smoking the barley before distillation. They do a green tea finish whiskey. They do birch sap finish whiskey. They do some absolutely fascinating stuff over there. And he's a great guy, great presenter.
He's fantastic. Speaking quickly of that, as our last big question before we finish, if there was any one uniquely Irish, either spirit or material you could use to smoke or finish a cask, what do you think it would be?
Geez, well, I don't think it gets more Irish than, say, peat or seaweed. Literal turf and seaweed, one of the earliest food sources here in Ireland. To take something else, like it's one thing. We've a good friend called Martin Duffy over in Chicago. He might even be watching into this because he keeps an eye on all the different things that are going on social media. And he's been telling us for years that we need to do a shamrock vodka. But it's probably just not us. But I don't think you could get any symbol more Irish than the shamrock. So if you're looking for the most Irish thing you could possibly do, probably a shamrock. Will we ever do it? Probably not. Marty Duffy would definitely buy it in Chicago. Marty is kind of a celebrity in the Chicago spirits world. I know he'd definitely, geez, if he got his hands on it, he'd sell it as well. The man used to sell Guinness and claims to have been part of the reason that Guinness is so big in the world today, and I have no doubt that he is, because he's an incredible character and an incredible guy. So yeah, that's what I'm going to go for. I'm going to say Shamrock is probably the most Irish thing you could do, but we wouldn't do it.
That is exactly.
What about yourself? What would you answer for that, Marcus?
Sorry, my laptop has just decided to have an attack and exit, so I'll just keep that back up. For myself, I would love to see. Now, this is something that I've had in Germany, but I would love to see in Irish spirits. Is I'd love to see a maceration of something like hay or Irish grass or Irish barley, Irish seaweed, or shamrocks, and use that to macerate a spirit. I've got a test tube here from Germany.
Oh wow!
And if anyone who is watching speaks German, I don't know what that says, but I believe that is. I think that's either beetroot or Swede. But these guys have done a wide array of different macerations from everything they found around a German farm. And I think if you took a Irish farm and took the most Irish grain or Irish plant that you have and use that in a maceration, I'd love to see a gin or a vodka or just a spirit, just a neutral spirit that's been put through it, just to see what type of flavors we get.
So Marcus, I think what we should do, right, is we'll make an Irish whiskey. We'll finish it in casks that are made out of Irish hurleys. You know, hurleys that they use for the sport. We'll share the casks with shamrocks, and play Christy Moore music to vibrate the casks while they're aging. I can't see how that would be a seller.
I think do all that, but we eschew the hurling casks, the hurling sticks for the cask, and we make a cask out of harps.
Or just play harp music to the cask.
Definitely.
There's some serious innovation going on here,
We
Marcus.
can even use the water from the River Liffey to definitely poison everyone who would try that. Our final question, just wrapping up here. Where can we all go to hear more from Stephan Randles, to hear more about Origin Spirits, Kurak Whiskey? Where can we go to see and hear and watch you?
Yeah, so I suppose you can find us on all of our social media channels, at Kurak Whiskey, at Calac Vodka, and at Ornabrack Gin. We recently did a fantastic celebration series, quite similar to what you're doing here. We invited some of our business counterparts from all over the world onto our at Calac Vodka Instagram Live. And we got some fascinating content there. We actually finished a series today with Sarah Talon from Singapore, who is involved in the whiskey store and in Caish Whiskey Bar over in Singapore. We had people like Yuma Kaira from Tokyo. We had people on from Paris. We had Dave Mulligan from 1661. We had David Moore from Chicago on. We had a fantastic lineup, and that is all on our at Calac Vodka Instagram page, if someone wants to go back and rewatch that content. But in terms of where you can see us in the future, we have a number of tastings lined up over the course of the next few months. I believe there's one with El Mulligans, who we were just talking about a while ago, coming up. We are doing a tasting with the Sussex Whisky Society over in the UK, and keep posted to our social media to see what other tastings we've got coming up. In terms of where you can find us, all of our products would be in all of the good independent retail outlets. A shout out to the guys up in Drink Store, to the guys in Celtic Whisky, to the guys in El Mulligans, to the guys in Bradley's in Cork, Worldwide Wines in Waterford, and to Irish Malts as well, who are absolutely fantastic with their Irish store and their international store. So that's where you can find our product. And if you want to find out more information, check us out on our social media pages.
Fantastic. And lastly, in what way can the whiskey community help out whiskey brands such as yourself at this time?
Well, I think the whiskey community is already doing a fantastic job. Social media has been exploding lately with all the different tastings. You even have the guys, Ivar and Omer down in Cork, well, I know Omar's in Cork, and I think Ivor is in Meath, who've set up talk drams where they've set up tastings where brands can interact with consumers and send out tasting packets to them. So the Irish whiskey community are already doing an awful lot, but in terms of what they can do is just keep drinking Irish. You know, if you're in a bar and you have a choice to drink an Irish whiskey or drink a Scotch or drink a bourbon, always choose Irish. There's so many new brands coming out. I'd recommend try them all, give everyone a go, see what you like, see what you don't like. But yeah, keep drinking Irish whiskey is the main thing that I put out there. And Irish vodka and Irish gin.
That's good advice, because I've literally finished my bottle
Wow.
at school, so I'm gonna have to buy myself a new bottle of that. But Stephen, it was fantastic to have you on today. Thanks so much for coming on, and thank you for all the information. For anyone who is watching, make sure you give Stephen a follow, give Origin Spirit a follow, get yourself a bottle of the Kurak whiskey, the Ornebrecht gin, the Calad vodka, taste your way through it, and make sure you tell him what you think, because everyone wants that feedback. But guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I've been Some Whiskey Bloke.
Thanks so much for having me on, Marcus. Hope everyone's keeping safe and well out there.
Aye. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time. Cheers. Slosh.
Slàinte.